Oi, it's DankoDave. Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies. And I was just watching Captain Toastman, as I am wont to do when I'm going through my list of YouTubers that I enjoy observing. And I noticed that he was live streaming, so I got a piece of him playing some Skyrim. The reason I mentioned that is, one, if you like the sim aircraft environment of War Thunder, there's no one more entertaining than Captain Toastman, and he has a great personality as well. Not sure how Dave survived that shot, but he follows it up with a little bit of fail of his own. So already we're getting into Clown Thunder as a teammate takes down the T-34, but I digress. This is DankoDave, and I talked with him a tiny bit in Captain Toastman's live stream today. Of course, this video is probably going to be coming out a few days after that event, but it's still fresh in my mind now. Something that none of you need reminding of, I'm sure, is the fantastic power of the M24, and judging from the fact that my Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess custom camouflage that is, again, one of my finest works of art to date, excluding my girls, of course. We know that this is the Japanese M24. The difference between the Japanese and American tanks, of course, is that the Japanese tank has less of a ground forces lineup to back it up. But that's no worries, all you have to do is not die. And that's exactly what DankoDave is going to do today, showing off the power and versatility of M24 light tank by playing a bit of the terrain game, using the rocks as cover and having the birds of the air be his weapon. That is, if the birds of the air are 75mm armor-piercing, high-explosive, ballistic capped rounds, in which case you win the prize. And the prize is complete and utter destruction of every enemy that very powerful round manages to squeeze through the armor of. And on a somewhat different note, the Swedish ground forces are probably going to be out by the time this video is out, and looking at the effect on the dev server of what their 75mm cannons can do at around this battle rating, the armor-piercing round seems quite underwhelming. It almost seemed like it had no spalling, so hopefully... well, I mean, I shouldn't even talk about dev server stuff, and there's a reason that I don't talk about dev server stuff all that much on this channel, and that's because the dev server is even more of a shit show than the live server of War Thunder, and that's saying something. It's terrifying to see the condition of vehicles a week or so before they come into the game, and then to realize that once they launch, they're going to be ignored for about 3 months. Truly, truly terrifying. It would be nice to see a more polished product in War Thunder, and yet, you know, this is the game that we've always had. And if you're not used to that yet, boy howdy, it's time to start getting used to that. Hi, Mommy! Welcome home! My beautiful wife just got home. She's been working hard all day in the hot, hot sun inside the U.S. Post Office. And package handling aside, the M24 light tank has been working hard today as well, acquiring a quick 4 kills and 2 assists, performing very nicely as you do. And even though he didn't quite manage to pick up the kill on that, was that an Allied Stuart? That's rather rare. Would that be a Chinese one then? Because we know we're against the Americans, and here we rub up against the rub once more. What even is an American tank? a miserable pile of secrets. And yet, using the roof-mounted modules to mow down a BT-5, which is itself essentially an American tank, being pretty much a carbon copy of the Christie tank, which was sold as farming equipment to USSR, a story that I love to tell, and no doubt you have all grown tired of. But what never gets old is the incredible performance of these low-rank American vehicles that just about every nation has access to in War Thunder, with the proliferation of minor nations when compared with the Big Four, increasing that number every time. One of the things I really enjoy about what I've seen of the Swedish line is these pasta meatball boys. Do they have pasta with? You know what? I think they have mashed potatoes with their meatballs. So let's call it as it is, right? These meatballs and gravy lads have a lot of, if not the best designed low-rank vehicles. What they make up for in being in touch with the times. Sorry, I said that wrong. What they lack in being in touch with the times, as I completely brain drain, they more than make up for in pizzazz and uniqueness. And this may be coming up in the form of the Swedish tree, which is completely unrelated to this match, but you're probably used to that by now. I do digress every now and then I get off the topic. The Swedish Ground Forces tree is looking both diverse and unique, and shows a marked lack of copy-paste vehicles as much as they can be enjoyable. As I mentioned in my Chinese tree video, they do nothing for me. Here we are watching the Japanese M24, which is a carbon copy of the American version, and yet enjoyable in the game of War Thunder, as clearly on display here. And yet, taking some heavy hits from this, I'm not sure which kind of SPAA that is, through the haze of combat we see before us, and yet, as the dust settles, DankoDave, with 5 kills, 1 crew loss, and still alive, now needs to spend some time giving some TLC to his transmission. Something that he could use in this situation is one or a few of the large number of smoke grenades that M24 has access to. It has one of those roof-mounted mortar tubes like you can see on some British and German tanks. No anti-personnel mortars available yet, but wouldn't that be an interesting thing to lob out of the chute? And could it be just one of those things to fantasize about for War Thunder? Could it be that one day, perhaps, we could even aim that mortar tube and have it be a targetable weapon? That would be kind of interesting, to be able to traverse it independent of the turret itself, as was the case at least for the German one that's available on certain German tanks, and I suspect that functionality was available on other vehicles as well. But that might just be something of a daydream. There's certainly a lot more that is coming to the game, or could be coming to the game, before that happens. But a man can dream. One recent change that may affect M24 light tank itself is a change to the elevation ranges of roof-mounted 50 cals. One of the things that I noticed with M24 last time I was playing, and it's been a feature of the vehicle for as long as I can remember, is the limited vertical targeting area of that anti-aircraft 50 cal, and it seems like kind of a waste to have a 50 cal on your roof that can't aim up at the aircraft that are buzzing above you. As little effect as that may have had in real life, the American 50 cal is fantastic in an anti-aircraft role, especially when compared with most of the other equipment available to tanks in terms of anti-air at its battle rating, which is nothing at all. Pretty easy competition. Another BT. A 75 goes through and the 50 cal finishes him off. Once again, this would be the second, I think, or possibly third 50 cal kill that DankoDave has, showing he's just as effective as an SPAA as he is with that 75 in what has been a delightful and overall entertaining match, slightly cut for time's sake because I want to squeeze another replay into here, and yet just a beautiful campaign on display here in the desert. I've seen some people complaining about this map, but personally I really enjoy the amount of cover that's available, as well as the opportunity to jump from what is essentially one lane to another. There are 3 or 4 major lanes to this map, one of which almost entirely enclosed there on what is the left side of the map from Double D's perspective here, which I avoid because things tend to bottleneck, and I far prefer to get side shots over face rocking the enemy, although there are times where it's fun to go down that alley and see what you can boop in the snoot. Popping around the corner, hoping for one more kill, DankoDave in the last seconds of the match opens up with the 50 cal, shot with the 75, fails to find its mark. No doubt would have been the death of that Soviet, what's that called, Su-5 or something like that. Anyway, it's soup now. It is done, as is this match. Not bad at all, with 7 kills and no deaths in the M24. Walker, no, that's not the Walker Bulldog, is it? It's the Chaffee. My bad. Now, the ME410 A1U4 with the 50mm cannon, some 20 mils, and does this have machine guns as well? I can't remember. I think it's just 20 mils and a 50, but I could be wrong. Just 20 mils and a 50, I know. Ample ammunition for the MK108s, that is Machine Kanona 108s. A lot of people call them Mark 108s, but that's not what they are. In fact, I got it wrong, didn't I? Those aren't MK108s. Those are MG151s, you dingus. And here I was correcting people that yeah, okay, I'm the dumb one. Anyway, ME410, a heavy, what was this called? I think it was called a destroyer, yes. Eine Zastora model of aircraft, a design concept that catches a lot of flack, although a solid platform multi-role fighter is certainly something that has not fallen out of vogue for the American forces. In terms of Germany's attempt to consolidate production and come up with a design that would work well in a multitude of roles, it is called a waste of time by many. And yet, it is very capable of wasting low-flying American aircraft. Here, seen, pulling around in the dive. By the way, flightsimtest, our pilot for today, your captain this evening. And low-flying, low-speed P-47 eats the dirt he was hoping to ground pound and waits for the next round of Air RB, alone in the hangar, no doubt lamenting the friends and family members that told him that American fighters are overpowered because he didn't climb and he didn't play the aircraft to the Air RB meta. flightsimtest going to display for us today a less explored, although well-tread meta for Air RB, and that is the role of the support fighter. flightsimtest is going to zoom in on enemies who are already engaged. He is going to support allies he will attempt to recover energy and not bleed off all of his energy or out dogfight a good number of enemies. He will take advantage of the fantastic firepower of his aircraft, and we're also going to see some 50mm sparkles as his cannon refuses to give him that hit a few times in this match. You may also see a very satisfying hit with that 50 cal, but I will let you find out when, where, how, and if that is going to happen. Spitfire goes a bit into the vertical. He's low on energy. Another Spit turning with an ally, and FST needs to choose his targets. Attacking the enemy on a tail of his ally, never a bad call. The Spitfire now maneuvering, aware that he's being targeted, is lining up into the sights of flightsimtest nicely. And yet, here at these closer ranges, the nimble Spitfire is able to turn, but he gets too hungry and loses his tail to a sustained burst of MG151 20mm ammunition. I'm trying to think if it's... I think it's armor-piercing incendiary. No. High-explosive incendiary tracer. Yes, or in the case of stealth, high explosive incendiary Menengeschoss rounds, if I'm not mistaken. And, as you know, as I've already admitted, I commonly am. Spitfire briefly on FST's tail, and yet doesn't have enough straight line speed in this situation to catch up to our hero. Of course, earlier models of Spitfire often limited in these Air RP matches by their maximum top speed, not quite so limited at slightly higher BRs where they become truly terrifying. Much like the Soviet and Japanese turn fighters, the Spitfire can be overcome by a consistent and disciplined boom and zoomer or energy fighter, especially since they don't have the vertical maneuverability, energy production that, say, a Zero or a BF-109 would have. So when people tell you take the Spitfires into the vertical, that's sometimes good advice, but it's something you need to judge for yourself. They are definitely aircraft at the lower battle ratings that bleed speed rapidly while maneuvering or in vertical sharp climbs. SB-2C. Here, a light bomber, a dive bomber that is itself something of a meme in the game of War Thunder, a fantastic aircraft at the turn fighting game until its energy runs out, where it becomes a total turd. Although its low speed and maneuverability is still fine, it does not have the engine power to quickly recover from maneuvers, and so you want to do things like this enemy SB-2C pilot did, which was to push the head on, and then in a failure to connect, he turned quickly on his enemy and took some shots as flightsimtest was flying away. FST himself playing to the strength of his heavy fighter, which is indeed a heavyweight beast, going for that straight line speed to escape and make some distance between himself and the SB, which is already running out of energy. Attempting to follow FST into a shallow climb is going to bleed off the SB-2C's energy. This is a perfect energy trap for a high-speed aircraft against a lower-speed aircraft. Sometimes an energy trap is a strong vertical into a spiral. Sometimes it's something like stair steps, moving up sharply, leveling off a bit to recover energy, and then moving up sharply again until you do the rollover. And other times an energy trap is, as we saw, moving in a slight incline, just enough climb to accentuate the fact that your opponent does not accelerate in a straight line as well as you do. And some aircraft can even outclimb an enemy in a shallow climb that they wouldn't be able to outclimb in a steep climb. Think something along the lines of Corsair versus Zero, and you might have something to work with there. I'm not quite sure. Of course, myself, I far prefer to count on the Corsair's fantastic energy retention, especially at low tier, where you will rarely find aircraft that can reach such speeds in a dive or maintain that energy so well to pull off that boom and zoom lifestyle that all the kids on YouTube and YOLO are talking about. But FST, now in something of a sticky situation, having outclimbed the SB2C, I really have to call it something shorter, now needs to use flaps and all of his cunning to try and actually get the tail of this American bomber. It doesn't help that he appears to be out of 20mm ammunition. Thankfully, he does have 50mm available, as he seems to have favored the lighter cannons for the heavy lifting of this match, already picking up 3 kills. And yet, with the nimbleness of this American dive bomber and the dedication of the enemy pilot to turning below FST and making his life generally anxious and miserable, the enemy pilot doing a great job of demonstrating the kinds of tactics you would like to employ against a higher energy opponent when you have a better turn rate. We're seeing what is not the best energy fighter, but certainly better than the SB against something that has far more turning capability than the ME410, as a Mosquito comes in to back up his ally at last. Of course, the Mosquito FB, a very capable heavy fighter in its own right. Can we get the hit? Oh, it's a sparkle. Such a nice hit, too. At least it appeared to be. 50mm connects with the Mosquito, not giving him time to make or to take advantage of his energy advantage, which would have been a fearsome situation to find yourself in as an ME410. As again, this very heavy German bird, even in its more advanced forms, falls short of the kind of maneuverability that lighter weight aircraft or lighter engine power to weight, another sparkle. Still a better love story than Twilight, but it's gonna need some more booming and zooming in a loop over. SB2C is getting dangerously close to getting his guns on target, and yet he just doesn't have the energy. Another shot, another sparkle, as a 50mm round for the 3rd time passes through SB2C. It looks like FST might be using the high explosive rounds in his 50mm, which is entirely reasonable. Another close miss, fun conflict of terms, and finally a connect with 50mm high explosive round, doing enough to do enough for his 5th kill. FST in Heavy Fighter ME410 in the game of War Thunder, a decent support fighter, and a fantastic all-around close air support or multi-role aircraft that many overlook because of its lack of overwhelming performance against enemy fighters. And yet, played right, it plays pretty nice. In any event, thanks to these two for sending in their replays, and I encourage you to do the same. The best place to get those to me is via my Discord, link in the description below, and if you just feel like connecting with me or hanging out, then you are encouraged to follow that link as well. Hope you enjoyed that one, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.